Welcome to our deep dive into Ahmed Hulusi's The Human Enigma. You've given me some fascinating excerpts from his book, and I gotta say, this isn't your average read. We're gonna be exploring Islamic philosophy, cosmology, and spirituality, and I'm really curious to see how Hulusi connects it all with science.
What's really interesting about Hulusi's approach is that he takes complex Sufi wisdom and he analyzes it through a scientific lens. It's a very unique blend.
Yeah,
Can be challenging, but also very insightful.
I'm already intrigued. So where should we start?
Well, Hulusi kind of dives right into this concept of a cosmic connection,
Okay.
suggesting that our brains are constantly influenced by energies from stars and constellations.
Yeah.
He's essentially saying we're wired to the cosmos.
Okay, that's pretty wild. But how does that actually play out in our life?
He links this cosmic connection to the idea of fate,
Okay.
arguing that a person's destiny is already set at the moment of conception.
Hmm.
He believes that the specific cosmic rays hitting the developing brain at that moment act like a blueprint for our lives.
So it's like our potential is shaped by the universe from the very beginning. That really challenges my understanding of free will. I mean, how can we reconcile this idea of predetermined fate with our ability to make choices?
That's a great question, and Hulusi does address the concept of free will in his work.
Okay.
Perhaps we can delve into that a little later, but now, let's stick with this cosmic connection. Hulusi gets even more specific, describing how certain rays on the 120th day after conception might actually activate anti-gravitational forces within the spirit.
Hold on, anti-gravitational forces. What does he mean by that?
He believes that these forces, if activated, could allow some individuals to escape Earth's magnetic pull when the sun eventually expands and engulfs our planet.
Hmm.
He ties this to the Islamic teachings about escaping hellfire on doomsday.
Wow, that's a pretty intense image. It sounds like he's suggesting that some people, based on this cosmic blueprint, might literally be able to escape a catastrophic, end of the world scenario.
Exactly. It's a powerful concept that raises a lot of questions about our place in the grand scheme of things and the potential we might hold within us.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? This idea that our individual journey is shaped by these larger cosmic forces operating beyond our perception.
That's just one layer of Hulusi's work. He also delves into the power of dhikr, the practice of repetitively reciting Allah's names.
Hmm.
But before we jump into that, let's pause for a moment. What are your initial thoughts on this cosmic connection idea? What stands out to you?
It's definitely challenging my existing beliefs. I'm grappling with this idea of a predetermined destiny, but I'm also fascinated by the concept of these hidden forces shaping our potential from the moment we're conceived. It suggests a much deeper meaning to our individual journeys.
I agree, it's a lot to unpack, but it certainly opens up new ways of thinking about ourselves and our place in the universe. Now let's shift gears a bit and explore this concept of dik. You mentioned it earlier. For those who may not be familiar, can you elaborate on what this practice entails?
Sure. Dhikr is a common practice in Islam where you repeat certain phrases or names of Allah.
Hmm.
It's often done as a form of remembrance and devotion, but Hulusi seems to be suggesting that it has a much deeper impact, going beyond just a devotional act.
Precisely. He compares the human brain to a radio receiver,
Okay.
capable of processing vast amounts of information from the cosmos. But he argues that we need to expand its capacity to truly tune in.
So are you saying our brains are like these powerful antennas, but we're mostly just picking up static because we haven't figured out how to properly tune them?
That's a great analogy, and Hulusi believes that dhikr is the key to that fine-tuning. He claims that consistently engaging in this practice allows us to access higher levels of understanding and even experience the qualities of Allah.
That raises an interesting point. How exactly does Dikra lead to this heightened awareness and understanding? Is he talking about a purely spiritual experience, or are there actual physiological changes happening in the brain?
That's a great question. And Hulusi actually addresses this by suggesting that Islamic practices in general have a deeper scientific basis than we might realize. For instance, he sees ablution, the ritual washing before prayer, not just as a means of physical cleanliness, but as a way to provide the brain with an electrical charge through contact with water.
So he's saying there's a deeper, more profound reason behind these rituals. It's not just about symbolism or tradition.
Exactly. He applies this same thinking to fasting, viewing it as a way to enhance spiritual development by reducing the body's demands and allowing for more focused prayer and dhikr.
It's like he's unveiling this hidden code where spirituality and the laws of physics are intertwined. That's really making me rethink my own understanding of these practices. But before we dive deeper into that, I'm curious to explore how Hulusi connects these ideas to the afterlife. It seems like he has a pretty intense vision of what happens after death.
He definitely doesn't shy away from that topic. And what's interesting is how he blends traditional Islamic teachings with his own unique interpretations.
Hmm.
For example, he describes the suffering of the grave, a concept that can be quite unsettling, as an experience where the spirit detached from the body is tormented by intense nightmares. He suggests this is especially true for those who haven't prepared themselves spiritually during their earthly life.
So he's connecting the suffering to a lack of spiritual preparation. What does he consider adequate preparation? Does he offer any specific practices?
He does. And this ties back to what we were discussing earlier about dhikr and other Islamic practices.
Right.
He sees these as essential tools for strengthening our spiritual connection and essentially preparing for the transition into the afterlife.
That makes sense. It seems like he's weaving a thread through all these concepts, connecting them in a way that makes you rethink their significance.
Absolutely. He goes on to talk about the sun eventually expanding and engulfing the earth, which he links to the Islamic concept of doomsday. But for Hulusi, it's not just about physical destruction. He describes it as being trapped by the sun's magnetic pole, unable to escape to higher spiritual realms.
So there's this idea of a spiritual escape being possible. Who does he believe can achieve this?
He introduces this concept of sirat, which is often described as a bridge over hell. He sees it as a perilous test based on one's accumulated spiritual strength. Some will cross safely, he says, while others weighed down by their actions in life will fall.
It's a very vivid image. It seems like he's really driving home the importance of spiritual development during our time on Earth.
That's a key theme throughout his work. Lucy really emphasizes the idea that our choices have consequences, not just in this life, but in the hereafter as well.
This all sounds very serious and a bit daunting. Is there any sense of hope or optimism in his view of the afterlife?
There is. While he doesn't shy away from the challenges, he also offers a path towards escaping those potential pitfalls. He suggests that through knowledge and dedicated spiritual practice, we can overcome our limitations and ultimately achieve a state of lasting bliss.
So knowledge plays a crucial role here. What kind of knowledge is he referring to?
He talks about understanding our composition, which is essentially the unique combination of divine names that shape our individual personality strengths and weaknesses. He believes it's like a cosmic blueprint that influences our tendencies and predispositions.
So are we just stuck with this blueprint? Is there any way to change our preserved tablet, as he calls it, our destiny?
That's where Hulusi's concept of free will comes back into play. He believes that we can alter our preserved tablet through our choices and actions. By engaging in spiritual practices and consciously choosing actions that align with the divine will, we could essentially rewrite our destiny.
So there's a balance between accepting our inherent nature and actively working to transcend our limitations.
Exactly. He has this beautiful quote where he says, "To moralize yourself with the morals of Allah is to observe and witness that within your constitution and essential reality there is no other than Allah, and that all the divine names that are manifest in the domain of acts are in perfect balance, a perfect state, and everything is exactly the way it is intended to be. It's an invitation to see the divine perfection in everything, even in our perceived flaws."
That's a really powerful idea. It suggests that we're not separate from the divine, that our essence is connected to something much greater than ourselves.
And when we recognize that connection, when we truly embody that unity, our actions naturally become aligned with the divine will. That's where Hulusi's concept of servitude comes in.
Servitude. I have to admit that word has some negative connotations for me. Can you explain what he means by that?
He's not talking about blind obedience or subservience.
Yeah.
He defines true servitude as recognizing and fulfilling our unique role in the cosmic order. It's about surrendering our ego to the divine will and allowing our actions to become a manifestation of Allah's attributes.
So it's about aligning ourselves with a greater purpose, becoming instruments of the divine will, rather than slaves to our own desires.
Precisely. He distinguishes between serving our Rab, which is like serving our own limited composition, our ego-driven desires, and serving Allah, which is about transcending those limitations and uniting with the divine essence.
That's a subtle but important distinction. It seems like he's urging us to move beyond a self-centered perspective and embrace a more expansive view of our place in the universe.
Exactly. And when we do that, when we let go of our ego and align ourselves with the divine will, he believes we experience a state of peace and bliss that transcends any worldly pleasure.
This idea of achieving a state of lasting bliss through spiritual practice is incredibly appealing. But can you give us a little more insight into what those practices might involve?
He advocates for practices like dhikr, which we discussed earlier, fasting and prayer, as ways to cultivate this connection. He also stresses the importance of studying and contemplating the Quran, not just reading it literally, but delving deeper into its allegorical and mystical meanings.
So it's not just about outward rituals, but also about inner reflection and understanding.
Absolutely. He encourages us to actively engage in a process of self-discovery, to shed our illusions, and embrace the truth of our interconnectedness with everything in existence.
It sounds like quite a challenging journey, but also incredibly rewarding.
He certainly doesn't sugarcoat it,
Hmm.
but he also emphasizes that it's a journey we don't have to undertake alone. He introduces this fascinating concept of the men of the unknown.
That sounds intriguing. Who are these men of the unknown? What role do they play in Hulusi's worldview?
He describes them as a hidden hierarchy of spiritually advanced beings who are actively involved in guiding and governing the universe. It's almost like a cosmic administration working behind the scenes to maintain order and balance.
A cosmic administration. That sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
It might sound far-fetched, but Hulusi presents it in a way that blends seamlessly with his other ideas. He even talks about this group having a high council led by the Prophet Muhammad and different ranks of saints with specific duties, like the Goth and the Quaspes. To be clear, the Goth is considered the highest-ranking saint, a sort of spiritual guide for the entire world, and the Quatabs are saints who play a vital role in maintaining spiritual balance.
So he's suggesting there's this whole other dimension operating beyond our ordinary perception, influencing events and guiding humanity's spiritual evolution.
That's one way to interpret it. And it raises some fascinating questions, doesn't it? What if our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our earthly existence? What if we're part of a much grander plan that we can even comprehend?
It's a humbling thought. It makes you wonder, what is our role in all of this? What responsibility do we have if we are part of this grand cosmic order?
Hulusi seems to suggest that our primary responsibility is to know ourselves, to understand our true nature and our connection to the divine. He sees this as an ongoing process, a journey of self-discovery that requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to confront our own limitations.
So it's not about passively accepting fate, but about actively engaging in our own spiritual growth. He talks a lot about the suffering in the afterlife and the perils of not preparing ourselves spiritually. That doesn't exactly sound like a passive approach.
You're right. He emphasizes the importance of taking our spiritual development seriously. He's urging us to make conscious choices that align with the divine will and to invest time in practices that strengthen our connection to Allah.
He seems to be saying, don't waste your time on earth chasing fleeting pleasures. Focus on what truly matters. Cultivating your connection with the divine, developing your spiritual potential, and preparing for the journey beyond this life.
That's a great summary. And he provides a lot of practical guidance on how to do just that. We've talked about dairy fasting and prayer. He also emphasizes the importance of studying and reflecting on the Quran, not just reading it for its literal meaning, but delving deeper into its allegorical and mystical layers.
He seems to be emphasizing this balance between outward actions and inward reflection. It's not enough to simply go through the motions. You have to cultivate a deeper understanding as well.
Absolutely. It's about transforming yourself from the inside out. And he makes it clear that this is a journey anyone can embark on regardless of their background or current level of spiritual understanding.
I'm particularly struck by his emphasis on unity, especially considering the state of the world today. In a time of so much division and conflict, he reminds us that at our core, we're all interconnected, part of the same divine essence.
That's a powerful message and one that resonates deeply. He challenges us to see beyond superficial differences and recognize the underlying unity that binds us together. That's a message we all need to hear, perhaps now more than ever.
This deep dive into the human enigma has been a truly eye-opening experience. It's challenged our assumptions, given us new insights into Islamic thought, and left us with a lot to ponder.
I completely agree. Hulusi's work is complex and challenging, but it also offers a profound and compelling vision of our place in the universe and the potential we hold within us.
So as we wrap up this exploration, I encourage you to continue the journey. Reflect on what resonated with you, what challenged your existing beliefs, what sparked your curiosity. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to unlock the mysteries within yourself and the universe around you. This deep dive may be ending, but your exploration of the human enigma is just beginning.